This is how we ride. This is how we do.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen. So we've been seeing here on the interwebs how Jonathan Davenport is going to race in the NASCAR Cup Series. And there's been a few NASCAR situations this week that I have some thoughts on, and we're going to talk about them today. And really, this video is going to be around stars and attractions for different racing industries. We are the land of America. We love Batman. We like the best of the best. We don't pay the dollars to watch Robin. We watch the NFL. We do not watch the XFL. Now, unlike the American football world, where the NFL has the best players in the football realm, and the XFL has the others who weren't as good enough to be in the NFL level because of talent alone. In racing, that's not how it works at all. There is no NFL league of motorsports at all, period. But there are stars and different forms of attraction to the stars of motorsports. And sometimes rules are bent and broken in the favor of stars of the sport. You know, one of the things that's very interesting right now in the NASCAR world's discussions is this Chase Elliott situation. You know, he got hurt snowboarding, and I like Chase Elliott as a person, had the opportunities to talk with him a couple times. He gets a lot of the things that are going on in the racing world, and he is very humble. Probably one of the most humble people in racing that I have got to share a conversation with. And he's currently out of the 9 car in the NASCAR Cup Series, and one of the discussions recently in the NASCAR side of things is should he get a waiver or not? Some people are saying, well, he shouldn't get a waiver because it was an incident that happened during a situation where he was, you know, rightfully choosing to do something that could potentially get him harm, something that is risky, like snowboarding. And then the argument to that is, well, what about Kyle Larson and all the other people who race dirt cars? You know, are we going to put the locks on them or not? I mean, how are they going to handle this? Now, I don't think that NASCAR should tell people if they can or cannot do something outside of racing NASCAR, but they can act like somewhat of a government with a set label of rules, you know, and how they're going to treat everyone fairly. And I think that decision on if a driver should be able to race or not, or snowboard or not, should be left up to the owners of the teams. And if something happens and they get hurt, then it's on the responsibility of the owners to pay the price. That may mean that Chase Elliott don't get to drive in the Drivers' Championship, but he can still do the champion or the Owners' Championship, correct? Even Kyle Larson was in the Final Four of the Owners' Championship, and that kind of matters, right? I mean, they do get paid more than the Drivers' Championship, so the Owners' Championship does still kind of matter, and even if Chase Elliott didn't get a waiver, the Owners' Championship would still be up for grabs in that case. The argument for NASCAR to give him a waiver is that they want the stars in the sport in the chase. Now, this is when I may become an asshole to a lot of people. Well, Mr. NASCAR, if that's the reason you're going to give him a waiver, that seems to be a problem, does it not? And the problem might be that you lack stars. Don't you have a 40-car field? Why don't you promote the other guys? Why aren't they a big deal? Everyone tells me you got the best drivers in the world, especially America, so why does America only know about 10 of them? Realistically, they only know about 4 or 5. And no, I'm not talking about knowing NASCAR drivers, the old NASCAR drivers from the era of when you were popular NASCAR drivers that make up pretty much all of your marketing in the public domain, the Earnhardts, the Kenny Wallaces, all this stuff. I mean, if it wasn't for the Dell Jr. download and Kenny Wallace's YouTube videos, they may not even know anybody in NASCAR. I mean, thinking about that, do you really talk to people at all or promote the so-called 4 or 5 stars that you even have? I mean, even Chase Elliott, is he really a star? I mean, when I talk to new people about racing, they don't really know much about NASCAR, and to get them to know who Chase Elliott is, they say, oh yeah, the guy in Hooters. Now, you may see that as a star, but look at what I just said. I said the guy at Hooters, not the guy in the Hooters car. See, a big issue in racing is racers and drivers used to be stars. Companies wanted to be on their cars to build a brand based on the association with a star, with a driver. The only guy you have like that in today's world is potentially Bubba Wallace. And he got fame through the whole Black Lives Matter era. There's no way around that. It's not like he got fame from winning races and dominating the sport. Now his sponsors get to say, I sponsor Bubba. While most of the regular people, when I go out there and talk to him, he's not the guy in Hooters. No, he's the black guy. Now, some people can say that's a good thing. Even the guy on the Brandon Marshall podcast said that's one of the reasons he's tuning in to watch NASCAR, because he can watch somebody who looks like him. And then his Wonderland rival, Kyle Larson, which might be the next closest thing you have to a star, for similar reasons. For as many times as I've heard Chase Elliott referenced to as the guy in Hooters, I've heard just as many people have to neglect down to referencing to Kyle Larson as the guy who said the N-word. So yeah, you have a lot of things to consider here with drivers and waivers and having the stars of the sport in the chase, because you don't have any stars. You need some. I would say just start recruiting from, grown men in local and regional short track racing that have spent the last 10 or 15 years building a fan base around a town, a city, a state. And you could bring those guys into your series like other forms of sports happen. They bring states with them. And you're trying to do that with dirt racing. That's been working for 30 years with the whole Jeff Gordon co-trickle effect. You've done a great job in making sure all the sprint car fans are watching out of the dirt racing world, at least. And now you're going after Jonathan Davenport. In dirt racing, at least we build stars the natural way. It takes that 10 years or so to build a true fan base in racing. Not these genetically modified people you got right now in 85% of your driver roster across the entire organization of NASCAR. By just pumping a bunch of money into marketing and shoving a bunch of rich people in front of everyone's face and saying, eat it. That's unnatural. That's steroidistic. It doesn't work. That's not how you got popular, and more than likely, it's how you're going to decline in time. It is funny how Jeff Gordon went to NASCAR instead of Indy cars because he didn't have a bunch of money or a last name to go to Indy. And in this current situation, that's now who you are. Now you got Jonathan Davenport coming into the situation, and he's one of these grown-ass adults that was a kid with NASCAR talent but no NASCAR money. He had to go where the modern-day Dell Seniors go, where the Sharks go to battle, and that's out there on the dirt tracks. Not sticker headlight 750 horsepower passenger cars, but 900 horsepowered super late models, drifting on half-mile ice rinks at 140 miles per hour next to a concrete wall without a safer barrier. Now, unfortunately, the regular world don't know much about what we do out here on the dirt tracks at all, period. But they do know what you do out there. In fact, the problem with promoting a general racing event or racetrack is that most people think racing in America is NASCAR. So when the world's introduced to your race, and it's boring or sucks, the population thinks that that is racing. NASCAR is just, for some reason, or many reasons, viewed as the NFL of racing in America. And the casual, regular person out there sees it as, if I don't like the NFL, I don't like American football. And they turn to something else, like Formula One. But now, instead of other forms of motorsport getting exposure and more so respect for their vehicles to get some glamour, dirt spends 20 years building a star like Jonathan Davenport, who is doing things in a late model some of your guys can't even fathom of doing. Like seriously, are we going to ignore the fact that your last race winner, William Byron, couldn't even make laps in a super late model at Volunteer? He was like spinning out and didn't even know what to do. I guarantee you Jonathan Davenport ain't gonna look that out of place. But that instance with William Byron didn't get no attention or coverage. No. It was perceived as recreational, right? Dirt racing is just a hobby, as Kyle Larson and others and William Byron and NASCAR has told us. It's just a hobby. It's what they do for fun. And the drivers doing it must be amateur, correct? It must be XFL-ish. See how people can view this sport of dirt? And you know what? Smart people know this. Real smart people know how this is perceived. So now you're going to take our star, bring him into your cars, and put him at Bristol. And now the world that is slowly, recently, thankfully to streaming and Kyle Larson and other things, and Jonathan Davenport eclipsing $2 million in winnings, they're finally hearing about it. So now you're going to bring a guy up, and the world is going to view this as him coming up from the hobby league to the pros. Can he hang? And they will judge his dirt racing abilities based on how he performs in your cars on a dirt track. Because you are perceived as the NFL. And when he goes in there and runs 15th or 20th, the society around us would view it as, those guys are better dirt racers than all the dirt racers. They beat the king of Jonathan Davenport. And I know this because the same scheme was pulled on sprint car racing with Steve Kinser. 7 races straight out of a dirt sprint car right into Cup. 7 races in a developmental new team. You suck, get out. Of course, that was to promote Jeff Gordon, to make it look like Jeff Gordon could have won 20 national championships on a dirt racing scene by just beating them a couple times in Cup. And now it seems like the same attempt is here. Of course, something like JD getting this opportunity is being masked and blindly accepted by opportunity and glory. And a guy getting a shot in NASCAR, and I partially see it as a really cool thing that I can't wait to watch. But the other side of me understands mass formation and the continued effects on dirt track racing that things like this can inflict. But NASCAR, they need stars. They used to have the dirt guy in Kyle Larson, but now he's got a new name. Hopefully he does well. Although your cars are basically street stocks. Heck, we actually do have a class named IMCA stock cars. They're similar to your class, and they turn about the same lap times. And honestly, if you would have picked Dallin Murdy to drive the car, I'd put some money on him to wax your ass up and down the racetrack from high noon to 5 o'clock, somewhere up and down the state line, from the Walter Brewery to the Quaker Steak. Take a guy like a Murdy, who is on the local regional level, who isn't in one of our premier divisions, but has premier talent in a similar race car to what y'all race every Sunday. I mean, en route to victory at Bristol in the Bristol Dirt Nationals last year, he was turning laps that would have set on the outside pole the actual NASCAR Cup race in IMCA stock cars, not NASCAR stock cars. But this is a guy that if another team wants to put in a dirt ringer in, I would put my money on Dallin Murdy to jump in a Cup car and win over Jonathan Davenport today. And anyone watching this who does not agree with that statement, do you think Jonathan Davenport could beat Dallin Murdy first try in an IMCA stock car? If you have any knowledge on the situation, you just said hell no. And at the same time, you answered the same question when it comes to what Jonathan Davenport will do in a NASCAR Cup vehicle at this Bristol dirt race. This is going to be just as foreign for JD as throwing him into a sprint car for the first time. It's just a completely different animal than a dirt late model. And the guys that do it weekly are really good at it, and they're more than likely going to beat him. I would love for him to kick their ass, but I'm being realistic about the situation. He may have an outside shot because there's not much talent over there on a Sunday afternoon in their fields. But realistically, I'm going to think that there's guys that are just in their race cars, know how to drive their cars a little bit better than him coming into the situation that is basically just a completely foreign object by going around the racetrack without a 4-link. I mean, at least Murdy's in an IMCA stock car. Similar speed, a much flatter car than a late model. And, I mean, the Cup cars are 5 seconds slower than super late models at Bristol. JD will be going into the corners 30 to 40 miles per hour slower in the Cup car, whereas Murdy would be pretty much in the same speed category. In fact, Chase Elliott, I would, sit out if you're going to be back in time. Probably not going to be back in time for the Bristol Dirt Race, but Chase Elliott, 9, Rick Hendrick, Kyle Larson. I know you watch my stuff from time to time. Send a message to Rick Hendrick, and if there is any dirt racer that's full-time right now in dirt track racing that could potentially jump into a NASCAR Cup vehicle and win at Bristol, the best driver who's in a vehicle that's similar to what they have and all that is Dallin Murdy. So Chase Elliott, Put him in. Put him in the 9 car for Dirt Bristol. This is an amazing combo, actually. You know, I really just want to make sure that our dirt world gets some proper respect. Obviously, I would say send your NASCAR guys to a dirt car so we can get evenly treated here, because it takes just as much skill to drive a 900 horsepower super late model as it does to drive a cup car, 750 horsepower stickered headlight, mold bodied vehicle. But for some reason in society, Jonathan Davenport ain't getting no status or clout for beating people in a 900 horsepower late model on a half-mile ice rink at 140 miles per hour against 90 to 120 competitors, where NASCAR drivers are getting all the status and clout for running 100 miles an hour at Bristol and running 20-second laps and realistically only having to beat 9 to 10 other competitors because the other cars just can't keep up financially with the R&D and engineers and all this other stuff that even the new car era gen vehicle isn't able to hold off, as we've been seeing this year with the certain power teams that are taking over the scene once again, as they always have. So for some reason, a guy doing something that arguably takes more driver skill and ability, beating more competitors across the country all the time on a consistent basis, is not getting that status and clout as a NASCAR racer. Now they're going to put him in the scenario, in a huge disadvantaged scenario, just as disadvantaged as William Byron in that super late model at Volunteer. But this is going to be on national television. This is going to be promoted. Everything, every step, every spin out, every mistake Jonathan Davenport is going to face in this cup vehicle will be promoted. Whereas the William Byron situation, swept it under the rug. Kyle Larson doesn't win the race. He finishes 8th or 10th. Sweep it under the rug. Why is that? It's because of marketing. But for some reason, we're not worried about the representation of the sport like Byron and NASCAR is. We're concerned with opportunity, like going to NASCAR to make our guys a star. Well, for one, nope. NASCAR don't really have stars anymore, guys. We in dirt racing have NASCAR's problem in that aspect. Dirt racing really doesn't even exist to most people. I do think, however, that we should be focused on telling the world who our guys are and what our sport and vehicles are and classes, more so than leaving it up to opportunities in NASCAR to do so. Heck, they're struggling with their identity as it is, just like society. Are we dirt track? Are we road course? Do we want the numbers here, the numbers there? Skirt on, skirt off? They're just confused. But this is just a situation where I hope there's some voices out there similar to mine sticking up for the respect of that other side of the aisle. I don't really give a damn too much what Jonathan Davenport does in a NASCAR Cup vehicle. I care what he does in a 900 horsepower super late model. What I don't like is for that 900 horsepower super late model and scenario to be viewed by society as the XFL. And if this side of the aisle with their scenario is gonna shout I'm the best in the world, then we might want to as well. But this scenario doesn't really help that out too much. This scenario and all these, I've always wanted to go, reinstates the XFL to NFL mentality that is out there. The hobby racer is gonna get a shot. And that's how it's being projected. Especially on that side of the aisle. Oh, especially. Now, personally, I'm probably going to be at the damn race now because I want to see Jonathan Davenport whack some ass. And I'm going to be cheering for Jonathan Davenport to whoop some ass, not just because I like Jonathan Davenport, but because I understand in this scenario, he's going to be representing the entire damn sport of super late model racing to the world. And I understand how important that role is and its effects on the entire dirt racing world. Public perception is the reality to some of these people, and we have to consider that perception when trying to grow this sport. Me personally, I think we could go around a lot of routes to take dirt racing higher, because there's a lot of routes out there that are on a higher pedestal than NASCAR. Why don't we partner with UFC or something else that, actually has millions of followers and fans? Even a guy like Bubba Wallace doesn't even have 500,000 followers on Instagram. There's underground country rap artists that have tens of millions. But we think that NASCAR's gonna make dirt racing bigger. They ain't even big themselves. Now, I want to help everybody get bigger, but I also want to do it respectfully. I don't mind if NASCAR gets bigger as long as we fix this system that's broke. The system used to work in a harvesting effect. But that system worked on respect for the local harvesters. And that just don't exist anymore. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's my thoughts on everything, the whole entire situation. I will be at Bristol now. Who knows, they may ban me from the premises before I even get there because I don't hand out passes on bullshit. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be something to see. We'll see it in person if we're allowed. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, like, comment. I know this was a little bit of a longer video. I feel like there's a lot of things for your brain bubble poppers and lights to turn on and think about. Sit back, digest everything that I just said. A lot of facts to it. A lot of common sense, a lot of reality to soak in. Be sure to subscribe. I love making videos like this. Hopefully you enjoy watching videos like this as well. And we will catch you next time.
This is how we ride, this is how we do.